Welcome to Week in One, where we bring you some of the top stories and interviews featured on eNCA over the past 7 days. I'm Pule. This week's top stories. PSA bus drivers refuse to back down from their wildcat strike. An alleged gang boss and his teenage son are assassinated in Lavender Hill. Minority parties calling for a vote of no confidence in Joburg Mayor Mpho Phalatse. The Senzo Mayiwa trial continues in the Pretoria High Court. It was a somber start to the week as Western Cape police investigate the double murder of a primary school boy and his alleged gang leader father. They were shot execution style in Lavender Hill. The community says they fear retaliation for the assassination of the Fast Guns gang leader. eNCA senior reporter Aisha Ismail reports.
11-year-old Jordan Brown was a promising football player, and while he didn't live with his dad, Cheslin Null, he would stay with him on weekends.
He's an innocent grandchild. He plays soccer. He come to his daddy. They take him home again. He's an innocent child. I want my grandchild back. I can't stand it, man.
On Friday afternoon, Jordan was sitting with his father at the back of the house along with a fellow gang member called Gino. Family members say another gangster entered the house and went straight to the back where they were.
I was sitting here and I just saw Cole coming through and then the shots went off. So I ran out and I asked him where was the shots going off and he told me on the roof, and then he ran and then Gino came out and I saw him bleeding, and then he told me I must go to the back because Cheslin and Jordan is also lying there.
Another family member who was present says they only realized afterwards that the person that had entered the house was the trigger man. She says Jordan and his dad were shot multiple times, execution style. The other man remains in hospital. Members of the 7945 Action Group, the postal code for the area, say they will shut down Lavender Hill and surrounding areas if the perpetrator, whom they say is known to the police, is not speedily arrested. The group says the suspect was recently released from Pollsmoor prison. They say while they accept communities must play their part in fighting gangsterism and drugs, police aren't meeting them halfway.
For those people that do give evidence, or by the time I come from the police station after making a case against the gang leader, by the time I walk out, they already know about it. The fear is so deep-rooted in our communities that nobody wants to go and make a case. Now imagine losing a child. There's no action plan.
The City of Cape Town says the Metro Police Gang and Task Team has since been deployed to the area. Aisha Ismail, Cape Town.
Several minority parties in Johannesburg are set to table a motion of no confidence against Mayor Mpho Phalatse. She says she's not surprised by the move, believing it to be backlash for fighting corruption. eNCA's Heidi Jokos compiled this report.
Johannesburg Mayor Mpho Phalatse has denied that she has failed in her duties as a mayor. She says attempts to remove her from office won't succeed. Phalatse says she and other DA leaders in the city are being targeted because they're rooting out corruption. She claims the removal of City Council Speaker Vasco da Gama last week only succeeded because councillors were bribed.
It's untrue that we've not done anything. There's other issues. We believe that there is a move to get a hold of the city's budget. As you can imagine, people had access to all sorts of things. We're uncovering a lot of corruption daily. We're referring cases to Group Forensic and Investigation Services daily. We are serious about rooting out corruption, and they don't like that. They don't like that because we believe some of them are implicated. We know some of them are implicated. It's not yet time to give facts, but we will in due course. And it will make sense why they're driving to remove us. We won't allow it, not on our watch. We will fight. The coalition is strong and it's standing.
The mayor says despite all the political infighting in the metro at the moment, there is no need for residents to worry about service delivery.
You know, I've been in office for 9 months. Our multi-party government has done a lot for the city of Johannesburg. We're getting a lot of positive reviews from residents and even other people in other parts of the country say we wish we were in Johannesburg. We can see what's happening. We can see the city is going somewhere. we're dealing with a massive backlog. So just to give you an example, our infrastructure backlog alone sits at around 300 billion rands. Our capital budget for the current financial year is 7.7 billion rands.
It's unclear when the no confidence motion will be brought forward, but it could possibly happen in the next few weeks. Heidi Jokas in Johannesburg.
On Tuesday, the Cape Amalgamated Taxi Association vowed to continue blocking MyCiti buses from entering Hout Bay. They demand compensation because they say MyCiti buses are operating on their routes. eNCA's Nobisutu Hejana has the story.
Lundichaphazele mna because imali yami senilode ngayo ikhadi lika MyCiti for inyanga anayi imali yokhwela iteksi anacash apha kum ngoku for iteksi so ndiyajika ngoba ndiphangeli because ibhasi azikho.
Some MyCiti bus commuters either had to take a taxi, head back home, or walk to their places of employment. This is due to the ongoing protest by Hout Bay Amaphela drivers who refuse to let the bus company enter the area. They are demanding the City of Cape Town grant them permits and keep to promises made back in 2009. A meeting held between the city and the drivers ended with mixed feelings. However, the South African National Civic Organization says the city is being arrogant and forcing MyCiti services in the area, even though operators aren't happy about this.
They say the buses will remain, we will work tomorrow. We can only take their word. But we were advising them that yes, the buses can work, but only as far as London, so that we don't have the flames and all this thing that took place there. But they said, no. The buses will work. So it remains to be seen what will happen tomorrow. I can never tell you what will happen tomorrow. But we hope that the day is not hectic like as yesterday. Because what we are trying here, I want to make sure that we work towards a permanent solution.
It is unfair on the commuter to subscribe and basically say to the commuter, you can only use Amaphela taxis when driving around in Hout Bay. That is completely wrong and we will not support it. We will continue to support legal, permitted Amaphela drivers, and we will continue to support new drivers gaining permits.
The city says the compensation matter is in court and will be heard next July. Nobisutu Hejana, Cape Town.
Stay tuned to Week in One. Coming up, we feature some of the interviews with key newsmakers conducted by our anchors. You're back with Week in One. I'm Shridika Pillay. Minority parties have Johannesburg Mayor Mpho Phalatse in their sights. We spoke to one of the parties bringing a motion of no confidence against her. Sally Badet spoke to Aljamaz Ahmed.
So those are your concerns. I want to just say to you, though, the coalition says, and the mayor says she's been targeted because she's trying to root out corruption. Also, Action SA, they have on the record, they've laid charges. One of their councillors has written a sworn affidavit that he was offered 2 million rand to stay away from that vote. In other words, to get the number of votes to oust Vasco da Gama. So in all these allegations and counter-allegations, are you sure you're on the right side?
I'm definitely sure. Remember, I was talking about internal processes. So when we are engaging on external processes, you know the civil society as well. In the city of Johannesburg, they've called for a motion of no confidence against the mayor because there isn't service delivery. There's a disruption in the city of Johannesburg. Purging of officials, it works negatively on the issues of service delivery because our role as councillors is to do the oversight. Our role is not to implement. Our role is not to go out there. Yeah, it's to do oversight. And then
So how concerned are you about these allegations of bribery? I mean, that's an incredibly serious allegation. That suggests there's direct intervention to push Mpho Phalatse, Vasco da Gama out of their positions. Positions, let's remember, that were democratically put together. That hung council was democratically put together to create that coalition.
100%.
So you must be concerned about that.
In many of the interviews, the Action SA also indicated that they were not satisfied with how the DA protected the former speaker.
They did.
For argument's sake.
However, what they said to me was, that they weren't going to undermine Vasco da Gama. They were asking the DA
100%.
to deal with it. And I think this points to the reality of coalitions. They are very tricky, difficult things.
100%.
But you cannot, on any level,
100%.
condone vote buying.
We do not condone vote buy, but we think that the status quo has to change on the basis that we need to put a new government, a government that has plans for the residents of Johannesburg. We need to lay out those plans. The officials must be driven by the plan of a political principle. A political principle has to bring those plans so that officials can run with it, instead of purging officials, because we will regress as a city.
The ANC has resolved to keep its 2017 step-aside resolution, but the party says it must be applied fairly. eNCA's Gareth Edwards spoke to ANC spokesperson Pule Mabe on the South African Morning.
Why is it still such a hotly contested issue with the ANC? It seems to work when people have criminal charges withdrawn, they come back into play. Why is there so much discontent within the ANC?
I do not think that there is a discontent within the ANC. What would have happened is that, Karen, in the 2017 conference, flowing from our National General Council, where we spoke about the restoration of the credibility and integrity of the ANC, conference resolved on the step-aside rule, and that the incoming National Executive Committee must develop guidelines. So it has been a work in progress.
Almost refining guidelines.
Yes, so it is work in progress. So you began implementing those post the 2017 National Conference. So there are certain lessons learned, sufficient to be able to assist the ANC to then say, do we need to refine the step-aside guidelines in the current form to make sure that in their implementation and execution, we do so consistently. Something that some of our structures raised at the National Policy Conference. They had said, we do not have issues with the step-aside guidelines. But what we are saying is that their application must be consistent so that they are never seen or perceived to be implemented or executed to bottle those who might be having dissenting views outside the structures of the organization.
Is that something the national leadership agreed with, that it has been applied consistently?
Yes, actually, when the president made the closing address, he did say, this is one issue that is on the radar of the National Executive Committee. We will be able to go back to the 55th National Conference, which a much more refined proposal to allow conference to deliberate, consider, and be able to guide what the incoming leadership is expected to do.
And Limpopo and KZN still very much against the step aside. They were vocal about this. We know during the KZN elective conference, it was a big talking point down there as well. They did not want to accept it. What's the state with the KZN and Limpopo committees? Because they want to know what it is before they get to December. They want that.
They were given a space. Yeah. They've used the platform of the 6th National Policy Conference to be able to deposit their own views. It is this which I'm saying will form part of that refinement as we consolidate how the step-aside guidelines must look like. The restoration of the credibility and integrity of the ANC is of utmost importance. For the ANC to be accepted by the rest of society, it has got to show, one, that it has got credible men and women who are discharging the responsibility of leadership. The step-aside guidelines were never meant to criminalize cadres of the African National Congress. It says, if Garen is criminally charged, indicted to appear in a court of law for serious crimes, he will be asked to step aside in the period wherein he's still appearing before the court. But if you are acquitted and are not found guilty, or the case is thrown out of court, it then follows that you come back.
The murder case of former Bafana Bafana and Orlando Pirates goalkeeper and captain Senzo Mayiwa continued in the High Court in Pretoria this week. eNCA anchor Mfundo Mabalane spoke to legal expert Pumelelo Zekalala for more insights.
Another interesting day in court yesterday, starting with that withdrawal of the special entry application. But we also heard Judge Maumela acknowledging initially that the discovery process was in fact poorly managed, although he still maintained it was an unwise use of time. What did you make of all of that?
I think Advocate Mshololo was able to achieve what she would want all that she needs to prove is that there's something which is irregular which has taken place, and the utterances by the judge certainly proves it. So if at the end of the day, or maybe during the providing of the witnesses or evidence in this case, she'll then be able to say, had I been given proper resources and make sure that I was able to address all these matters adequately, all these delays wouldn't have been there. So it's by your delays are not providing me with adequate information or disclosing the full state of these particular witnesses. Hence, we're in this particular problem that you are in now.
If Advocate Defu has gone to great lengths to get this information, surely the other, at least advocate in this instance, should have been given the same courtesy that the documents are now here. We've had one advocate fighting to get them. Let's share with the other.
If there are any instances of irregularities, the question would be from the judge, why Advocate Mshololo or any other of the defense attorneys didn't you stand up and say, it's incorrect that you've received the information which is there, to prevent this type of 317 entries from being made into the record. It does tend to put the matter into jeopardy if there are going to be a high number of these particular irregularities or illegalities being inserted there or being highlighted, because it simply says, on the ground of fairness, on protection of Section 35 of the Section 35 rights, the state has not done its case, and the court has not done its role of protecting those particular rights.
Stay tuned to Week in One. We bring you more in a short while. Welcome back to Week in One. I'm Shirtika Pillay. Violence broke out at PUTCO offices when the drivers of an unprotected strike barred management from leaving its New Canada premises in Johannesburg. This comes after 7 days of a wildcat strike by drivers, demanding bonuses and a 6% increase dated back to 2020. eNCA's Pule Mabe was there and filed this report.
Burning tires, locked gates, and singing strikers have become a norm outside the PUTCO facilities in the south of Johannesburg. The bus company and some of its drivers aren't seeing eye to eye, which has led to a week-long standoff with management that's taken PUTCO buses off the road. The strike has affected passengers who also came into the offices to ask for refund. However, management found themselves locked inside the premises as drivers blocked them from leaving. This sparked a scuffle with the police.
We've been trying to sit down and find a resolution for this matter, but I think it's getting worse now because now we are fighting amongst ourselves. Now we just received the news that at Pretoria they have just killed one of our member. So now, which means now no one is going out.
Drivers dismissed for embarking on the unplanned strike have hit their 24-hour window period to appeal their dismissal.
We're seeing that there's a huge number in terms of the traffic volumes on the emails. So it does show that people are somewhat intimidated by what is currently happening at some of our bases, but nonetheless, they are able to deposit some of those representations.
Drivers promise to continue protesting until they receive their bonuses, fired or not. Pule Mabe, Johannesburg.
The Senzo Mayiwa murder case returned to the North Gauteng High Court this week, with several startling revelations by state witnesses. eNCA's Slindelo Masikane has been following the story.
For several weeks now, forensic officer Sergeant Thabo Musia has had to face some tough questions from the defense. He can breathe a sigh of relief now as he'll no longer be expected to return to the witness box. Counsel for the defense has been consistent in trying to poke holes in his evidence with accusations of the crime scene being contaminated.
It was put to you that the reason why you handed the exhibits on the 30th of October 2014 is that you were tampering with those exhibits.
I remember that statement.
Now, did you know who the accused were at that stage?
No, the accused were not known as yet to me.
Would you have any reason to tamper with exhibits as suggested?
I did not have any reason to tamper with the evidence.
Mosia says he still questions why it took 4 hours to call him to the scene.
It was abnormal. It was abnormal. I've been attending to crime scenes, but that time frame is too much.
Mosia admits he couldn't handle the crime scene alone.
That crime scene was very much complicated, and for me it was a bit heavier, and that's why I ended up deciding to, and I ended up doing the necessary to call people who can help me. Yes, it was going to be very much difficult for me alone.
Slindelo Masigan, Pretoria.
One of our special focuses this week has been service delivery related issues that continue to frustrate South Africans. In the city of Tshwane, disgruntled residents of Pumelelo, who were affected by floods nearly 3 years ago, say that there have been ongoing delays in moving them to vacant land. Our reporter Pule Jones has more.
The city of Tshwane is buckling under the pressure of delivering on its lofty service delivery promises to Pumelelo residents. This time, frustrated and impatient community members who were affected by deadly floods about 3 years ago in Pumelelo have been waiting for years to be relocated to vacant land. Now their anger is focused on Human Settlements MMC Abel Dawu. He previously promised them vacant land, but they are yet to see this materializing.
You see these people, they are on my head. I can't sleep, I can't eat. They are suffering. The money is there, the land is there, everything is there. My question is one, why the delay?
In a bid to save face, the city says nothing is off the table. It reiterates that residents will indeed be moved to vacant land that's already been paid for.
As the city of Tshwane, we know for a fact that we have acquired the land for relocation. And one of the delays was precisely the fact that we're not only looking to relocate flood victims, but also deal with the issue of informal settlements in the whole of Pumelelo in general.
Marching to the municipality headquarters, residents have given the city 7 days to respond to their demands. If they don't, demonstrators have promised to return in their numbers. Pule Jones in Pretoria.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says weak administrative management and poor political leadership capacity are some of the reasons behind local government's failures. This as mayors across the country gather at the East London ICC to address challenges they face. eNCA's senior reporter Aviwe Mtila was there.
Local government has come under a lot of scrutiny recently, says President Cyril Ramaphosa. This was reaffirmed earlier in the Auditor General's report, which highlighted the current administration's lack of improvement, transparency and accountability, and a 20 billion rand plus dent in irregular expenditure.
As mayors, you are a bulwark against corruption in all its forms and have a critical role to play in promoting ethics and integrity in your municipalities. We look to you as mayors to guide the local government anti-corruption forums convened under the district development model.
The president says the Kokta minister told him that corruption and political infighting are some of the causes of the rot in municipalities.
Let's face it, at the real root of this problem is unemployment, is poverty. Because if you are in a municipality and there's no chance of getting a job or anything, and the only biggest employer is government, so everybody wants to go to government.
This year, water was cut not because of the drought, but because of striking employees at the Amatola district municipality, leaving several communities without a single drop for weeks, which turned into months.
When you talk about corruption, you know that corruption, it's a cancer that diverts scarce resources from important policy goals. So when you tackle corruption, you must ensure that you bring to book all the culprits and you must deal with them ruthlessly.
As political interference continues to plague many municipalities, services are undermined and the residents bear the brunt of poor service delivery. Aviwem Tila, East London.
And that's a wrap for this weekend's show. From myself and the Week in One team, have a good one.